Hi, Katie. I'm meteorologist Dave Baker. Happy Monday to you. Hopefully, you had a really nice weekend. I have to say, with more of that scattered shower and thunderstorm activity we saw over the weekend, turned out to be a fairly nice Saturday and Sunday. I had some scattered showers here and there, but really didn't get a lot of rain at my house. But having some of those nearby thunderstorms allowed for a bit of a cooler breeze. And I think we're going to see more of that as we go in through the day. And kind of the surprise visitor over the course of the weekend, a little low pressure area out in the central part of the Atlantic is now Disturbance 90L. And it does have a chance of becoming a tropical depression, although it's going to have to get its act together here pretty quick. Otherwise, it's not going to have much of a chance. But let's step outside real quick and just give you a couple of our local particulars here. It is 90 degrees outside under partly cloudy skies, at least here in Lafayette. That heat index is 100, dew point is 75, so the humidity at 63%. Pretty nasty out there. Winds are currently out of the east-northeast at 5 and the pressure at 30.16. As far as traveling, not too many issues. There are a few pop-up showers that are already getting going here during the early part of the afternoon, but most of that has been in the coastal areas, but probably some more showers and thunderstorms will get going later this afternoon. So, kind of keeping the rain chance on the high side. There's a look at the latest radar. Again, most of the action is out here over extreme southwestern Louisiana. But our friends over in Calcasieu Parish, especially southwest area Lake Charles, getting over to around Carless and then west of Big Lake, you got some showers, then a couple of thunderstorms developing on the east side of Big Lake, and those will kind of push off toward the northeast and could affect the I-10 corridor. But I do think we're going to see a bit more shower and thunderstorm activity kind of drifting in from the southeast. So down there along the coast, and then you see some more showers kind of developing there south of New Orleans. I'll go ahead and grab the Hammond radar, and you can see there's a bit more activity there east of New Orleans, and that's going to be drifting off to the west thanks to a big ridge of high pressure that's currently over the southeastern U.S. And we could see that a little bit better here on the satellite imagery, and there's a big upper ridge, and that upper ridge was actually over us for most of the weekend, and that kind of helped us out. But now it's moving off toward the east, and that's allowing a couple of disturbances to come in across the northern Gulf there on the southern side of that ridge. So that's going to help us out with some of those showers and thunderstorms later this afternoon. And as far as our local waters outside of those showers and storms, a pretty decent day out there. Southeast winds 10 to 15 knots and seas running about 2 to 3 feet. So the big picture there, you can see right smack dab in the center part of the Atlantic Ocean, we've got a bit of a disturbance there that has a decent chance for development, although it's going to really have to get itself organized here within the next probably 12 to 24 hours if it's going to be a tropical depression, and it's going to have to go pretty quick for it to get it a name as well. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. But you can see on the big satellite imagery, what we're talking about is 90L, and it's way up there in the central part of the Atlantic. You've got Bermuda right there, so it's not going to be affecting anybody until the system makes its way farther to the east across the Atlantic, heading over toward the Azores and into Europe. But as far as the satellite imagery, you can see there is a pretty good surface circulation there, but there's not a whole lot of convection right around that. It is pretty broken as it's being affected by a lot of wind shear. But that was all part of a bit of a frontal boundary, kind of a low developing on that. And you do occasionally get that close to the coast of the eastern seaboard, and then also that can happen here along the Gulf Coast, and there's actually some suggestion of maybe of that coming up in the models. I'll show you that in just a little bit, at least something perhaps locally that could generate off an old front. But there's the low out in the center part of the Atlantic. It is forecast to cruise off toward the east. Pretty much all the hurricane models are going to drag it very rapidly out into the northern Atlantic, where it will quickly dissipate. And as far as it getting a name or even getting a tropical depression status, according to most of the models here, it looks like we might be able to get it into tropical depression status, but only a few take it to a named storm. And as you can see, several of them keep it lower than that threshold there. So we'll just kind of watch the National Hurricane Center as we go into the afternoon. We'll get another tropical weather update a little bit later on, let's see, about 30 minutes or so. And then we'll see if they go ahead and increase this in intensity and perhaps give it a tropical depression status. We'll have to see. Right now, that is not on the table, but we'll have to wait and see. Later this afternoon, if we're going to see anything or at least any advisories posted, it'll probably be around 4 later this afternoon. There's a quick look at the Gulf satellite. Again, you got that ridge of high pressure that's up here, generally over the southeastern part of the country. So what's happening is the flow is coming in more from the east, and you've got a few disturbances that are going to move off to the west, and that's going to generate some showers and thunderstorms for us today and again for tomorrow. And then I think we're going to see more ridging aloft again for the latter part of the week, so the chances for rain will go back to the afternoon variety storms. A lot of moisture there in Central America, and to tell you the truth, I think our next system on the Pacific side is right about there. That's going to get going, and we'll probably have a new tropical depression on the Pacific side, if not a tropical storm. They've had 5 named storms on the Pacific side so far, and we've had 0 on the Atlantic side. As far as the Caribbean, we do have a tropical wave right about there. That's going to continue to drift off toward the west, more of an upper trough a little bit farther toward the north. So nothing expected to develop over parts of the Caribbean this time around. And as we look at week 2 and week 3 on the global tropics hazard outlook, I mean, really, we pretty much try to pay more attention to the 7-day outlook from the National Hurricane Center. But you can use this to kind of give you an idea what might be happening over the next couple of weeks. And it does show little, if any, tropical development over the Atlantic basin, at least through July the 8th. This will be updated tomorrow afternoon, so I'll be able to give this to you on Wednesday's Let's Talk Tropics. Water temperatures very, very warm. And I also want you to just kind of look at this one area here that's over the Gulf Coast of Florida, where we're seeing some of these water temperatures exceeding 30 degrees Celsius. That's 86 degrees on the Fahrenheit scale. And you've got some water temperatures that are starting to push 90 there over the southeastern part of the Gulf. And the reason I want you to watch that area is because of what the models are kind of showing here coming up in a couple of days. And those waters there over the eastern Gulf are also pretty warm for this time of the year. A little below average out over the Caribbean and the western Atlantic, but still those waters are warm enough to support tropical activity. And the same goes with the tropical cyclone heat potential, which is quite high there over the western Caribbean and now the southeastern Gulf. And this is a measurement of that 80-degree water and how deep it goes. So if a tropical system taps into this, occasionally you can see some rapid intensification. Fortunately, there's nothing in that area right now, but if something were to develop or try to move over that area, it'd be like running over some premium fuel and giving it a good chance for some rapid development. A lot of Saharan dust still over the central and eastern part of the Atlantic, although it's kind of dissipated a little bit over here in the western part of the basin, which means that would be a little less inhibition when it comes to tropical development. If there's not a lot of Saharan dust aloft, that can keep our tropical systems going. But there is a lot of shear moving across the development areas of our tropical basin, especially here over the Bay of Campeche and also much of the Atlantic basin. There's that other low 90L, which is out there, and it's also being affected by a lot of shear right now. But this area here is going to be an area where we're going to see a little bit lower wind shear. If I can get this telestrator, it is not, forget it. But we're going to talk about the southeastern Gulf of Mexico that could be prime for perhaps one of those lows to develop along a frontal boundary. So let's go through some of our computer models, and the GFS showing 90L making a quick exit off toward the northeast, so no worries there. But what I want to watch here, especially going toward the 4th of July weekend, it looks like there's a bit of a frontal boundary kind of showing up, and it also shows up a little bit in the Euro model as well. And you see a little low kind of there right along the Gulf Coast. Tropical weather, I know your eyes kind of drawn over here to the Pacific side where you get several tropical systems that try to work their way off toward the west. But if we get a front to come down in here and then maybe sag all the way into the Gulf waters, occasionally you can get something to fester in that area. And of course, with the water temperatures being so warm, that would be an issue, especially if you've got some lower wind shear. Also on the Euro, and I am noticing that bit of a pattern kind of shows up a little bit here on the northeastern Gulf Coast as we get into that weekend as well, going into the 4th of July. So this is now into the 28th, 29th, and the 30th. And then as you get into the 4th of July, you'll probably see that frontal boundary settling right in there. So something to kind of watch out for. We'll have to see if the other models continue to show this over the next several days. But outside of that, I'm not really seeing a whole lot of tropical development other than what is left of 90L moving off toward the east. But even the Canadian model does seem to show a little bit more of a flare up. Go ahead and let this go. This is going the 29th, the 30th. Watch this area here. And then going into the 4th of July weekend, you get that frontal boundary and maybe a little bit of energy trying to drift its way off toward the west. We'll finish off with the icon, which doesn't quite go all the way out to the 4th of July holiday, but it is showing a little increased moisture over Central America and then down in the Bay of Campeche. But as far as the northern Gulf, maybe a little bit of a rainy area or an upper trough that wants to kind of dig there over the southeastern U.S. So if that were the case, coming up maybe about 10 days from now, there's a possibility we could see something try to generate there over the southeastern Gulf. So do be on the lookout for that. But remember, even though we don't have a lot of action during the months of June and July, it still can happen. And unfortunately, when these tropical systems during June and July usually form, they're pretty close to the coast and they don't give folks a lot of time to get prepared. So that's why we tell you to get ready well ahead of time, especially when there's no tropical systems that are out there. But remember, we're now in the second half of June, well into the second half of June, and July is going to whip by pretty quick. So you're talking about 5 weeks before we really start to see the normal or the activity ramping up, at least during a normal year, and it'll be September before you know it. You know how the summer goes, especially kids, when the summer vacation, it zips on by pretty quick. So we're heading to the 4th of July holiday, which is kind of like halftime of the summer season. And by that point in time, that's when we start to really get more concerned about tropical systems a little closer to home. So remember, get those preparations done right now while everything is nice and quiet. Make sure you got your plan and know where you're going to go if you indeed evacuate if any tropical weather comes our way. Well, I hope you enjoy Let's Talk Tropics. If you do, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and turn on those notifications. Also, remember, you can hear my forecast daily on Big 102.1, Planet Radio 106.7, and Freedom 95.1. Follow my social media pages too. I'll keep updates on 90L if we get if anything else changes on the status of that. I'll post that on Facebook and X. And also a big thanks to everyone who has subscribed to Acadiana Weather Today right here on YouTube. I'm meteorologist Dave Baker. Enjoy the rest of your Monday, and I'll see you for your Acadiana Weather Today tomorrow morning at 7.